Do you know the term Bhag? It's a very commonly used business terminology. So Bhag is big, hairy, audacious goal. Alright, so my presentation is a little black bag. Okay, and that's what I'm going to talk about. But this is, you can do a little bit of research on this, but this is a very, business schools use this terminology a lot. You know, it's used for businesses to inspire for business development, for human resource development, and building new teams and structures, and setting 5-year business plans. So this is quite a common terminology. Okay, so 1986, I was about 19 years old. I got married, and I moved for the first time to live in Pakistan. I was raised in Dubai. I had never lived in Pakistan, so it was a huge experience for me to move to Karachi. Okay, have you ever seen a Pakistani bride? Okay, so this is what they look like in the bride room. That's how they look like. So this is my wedding photograph. Okay, and that's my address where I moved. It was in Karachi. And this is the house we had to go and check up with my mother-in-law because we were newly married. We couldn't afford a place of our own. And then these were these big gated houses and communities. And very rarely women would venture out of these big homes, you know, because the society was very closed up in those days. That's my husband's station wagon. You know, it is parked there. That's the guy there, the driver there. Okay, who would take me around, because as a woman it was difficult for me to go and drive there, you know, so it was safe for a driver to accompany me wherever I went. So I was bored out of my mind, and I was looking to do something different because there was not a lot to do, but I was a creative person, so I started looking for influences around me and inspiration, and I was really inspired by the truck art. And the truck art was basically these big, huge trucks, vehicles that move from one city to another to transport goods, trees, furniture, oil, food, you just name it, and that's what in Pakistan they use it even today. And the art that you see there now has gone quite global. You have truck artisans who actually design furniture, crockery, fabrics. It's everywhere, you know. But it's a special skill. It's quite cheap and tacky and cheerful. In those days, we wouldn't even want to look at it. But now it's become quite fashionable, you know. So, but I was influenced by this style. Not a lot of people knew about it, but Pakistan was huge in leather designs and goods, so leather jackets and clothing and so forth. Also, I don't know if you know about it, but the FIFA World Cup soccer balls are actually designed in Pakistan. There's a whole city called Sialkot which is dedicated to designing these soccer balls, and there are factories there, and you have girls working there, boys working there, and it's quite an industry. So I did my research and I found out that this industry actually exists, you know. Then there was another influence. It was huge. A lot of my friends, they were housewives or just young girls working from home into fashion industry. You know, that was an easy industry to get into for girls at that time, and I was quite enamored by it, you know. However, I didn't want to get into designing clothes. I still wanted to do something quite different, but I wasn't quite sure what, you know. I started doing further research, and it took me to the old port town of Kimari in Karachi, you know, and I realized that there, on the outskirts of Kimari, you had old leather tanneries. There was, you know, this is how, you know, Kimari looked like, and I had to really go through the traffic jams and crowds and buses and noise to get to this town, and, you know, and commute there. It was 2 to 3 hours journey every day. And then, of course, there was a big security risk. You know, you had bomb blasts happening everywhere, and it wasn't quite safe for a young girl to venture out. But because I used to have my driver, my bodyguard with me, so I took the risk and the chance. So I decided I want to be in leather business. So I had a little bit of saving. My 10,000 rupees at that time was about 500 dirhams. Okay, that's just to put it in perspective for you. But for me, that was a fortune. And I decided that I want to be in leather business, and I invested in my first leather. And my first leather that I bought it home, and later on I found out was actually fake leather, was Rexine. I didn't even know the difference between real leather and fake leather. So I wasted all this money over this fake resin, which was used for car seat covers, you know, and it was a huge disaster. So I decided that said pause, I need to do more research, I need to teach myself more, I need to take advice, I need to train myself. So I went back to the drawing board for 6 months. I researched and it took me to the leather tanneries again. I just loved the big tanneries and how they mix the colors and so forth. And this is how the leather would come out, you know, the skins being treated, the cow hides and the sheep hides and the crocodile skins and all of that. And you know, I just fell in love. I fell in love with the colors, the fragrances, the smell, the sights and the sounds of these tanneries. But when it actually came to buying leather, I realized I can't afford the real deal, the real leather being made in Pakistan. It was just way out of my budget and my scope, you know. So I did further research, and my research took me to these. And these were the bundles of scrap leather coming out of Italy, Milan, Rome, Paris, you know, where you had these big designer houses like Gucci and Dolce & Gabbana and all, who were actually sending their scrap leftover leather pieces to Pakistan. You know, this was their waste basically. So I had to go and buy this was called a lot. I had to buy like one bundle, they would weigh in the bundle and then they would sell it as a lot. You know, but I was not allowed to open. I could only open these bundles. I would bring them home, open them in my garage and go through the scrap. 60–70% of it was not usable, I had to get rid of it. But then there were little gold nuggets, little tiny cut pieces of leather from leftovers from shoes and from handbags and straps and belts and all. And I started saving all of those and I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to design my unique handbags and shoes from. And so I found my leather, but from a completely different source. I did further research on the process of designing a bag. You know, and there was not a lot of inspiration in there. These are some of the original pictures because in those days you did research with your camera and your notebook and pencil. There was no Google, there was no internet. And they were very crude looking shoes that I came across there, you know. But I realized that how to stitch the leather, you know, it needs craftsmanship. I started making friends with some of these workers. I didn't know that where I will meet them, you know. I started chatting them up and I would take food to them and tea to them and just sitting around and watching them design. These were the Peshawari chappals, you know, these are that you have drivers and the coolies or who wear them in the fish market and so forth. But I just found it interesting and I thought, this is a skill set that I can one day use for myself, and I'm leading a team of designers. But then I needed further education, further research. I ordered, and in those days you could order catalogs. Okay, so I did a mail order catalog. You know, I ordered 3 big, large books, waited for 3 months for them to arrive, and when they did, my God, I was a girl in a candy store, you know. My candy had arrived. And I thought, that's it, I'm in business. I know everything that I need to know about designing a handbag. Then came the big milestone in my whole business plan, the funding. How am I going to fund this business? So I looked for sources all around me, and you remember this? Okay, so I convinced my husband to sell this, you know, his old station wagon. I convinced him that I had an idea and I'm going to go places with that. I'm going to become the designer of Pakistan. So he sold his car. He was in love. He sold his car for me at that time. Then came the idea of branding. I needed to come up with a name and a brand for my product. And in those days, again in Pakistan, it was very chic. I looked around that most of the designers were using Italian names, and although we didn't even understand what it meant, or French names for their brands, for their labels. So I thought, okay, I'll settle for French. But I couldn't speak a word of French. Got myself this dictionary, I still have it. And then I looked through. The word for leather is cuir. How many of you speak French here? Okay, what's the word for choice?
Choix.
Choix. There you go. That was my brand, Choix du Cuir. Okay, and I thought that was so cool. And I designed this label myself. I designed, you know, in those days, I would sit and draw on a piece of paper, go to the printer, sit with him, do the color separation, no, you know, PowerPoints, nothing to design through, and it worked, you know. I even designed my own shopping bag so that if anybody buys my bags, how are they going to carry them? They have to have their own bag. And this was a red ribbon. I was so proud of that idea. You know, they were really, really cool bags, you know, really cool bags, and they were all reusable, and they were beautifully done, very strong as well, and so I had these designs. So that's it. I was in business from there on. And then came that I needed a location to promote or sell. I couldn't afford a shop, so I started holding exhibitions. I started going from city to city, carrying these bags around, lugging them from one city to another, and holding exhibitions in hotels, in private homes, you name it, and I did it all, you know. However, transportation was always an issue, okay? But that's how I went from Karachi to Lahore, from Lahore to Quetta, from Quetta to Islamabad, you know. And the trains even today look like that, and I would put these big cartons of my handbag production and take them from one city to another. I never looked back, okay? And I started holding these shows, and they were running a success so much so that some of those designer friends of mine who were designing clothes, they started inviting me to their shows because they said our models need to carry handbags. Would you participate and be part of it? And I said, yes, absolutely. So fashion business is huge in Pakistan. I would want you to do some research on that, and you will see that even today, you have designers who are going to Milan, exhibiting there, or in New York. Some of the Pakistani labels are going global, absolutely global. And I'm proud of it that in those early days I was able to contribute to it in some form or in a small way. Finally I had a unit of about 40 staff of my own, my little workshop. And I basically had to sell the business because 7-8 years later we moved to Dubai, so I had to sell the business to come here. And then I ventured into other ideas, but the lessons that I learned during this business stayed with me and remained with me even today. Today I'm running a multi-million business, you know, but these lessons that I learned on here, designing these handbags and this, you know, they have remained with me to this day. And my signature bag was a little black bag. You know, I still have it, and you know, this was the runway success, this one. And it was a tiny little bag. Girls have heard of the little black dress? Coco Chanel? You know, so I came up with a little black bag, you know. And yeah, so this is the big bag story I wanted to share